All right. Welcome to our 10th Slither. Today, our host is Hillary Ebley from DePauw University. Hillary is a member of the Leadership Council of Ionic, and in particular, she is a member of Team Bug, which has a lot to do with keeping the website up and running and looking wonderful like it does. And she's going to give us some insights into Ionic Viper, the website. So, Hillary, with that, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Chip. I am, in addition to being a member of Team Bug, I am also a member of Team Outreach. And the whole idea behind this was to hopefully reach some new faculty or new Viper users that maybe didn't know everything they needed to know about the website. And hopefully we'll get a few in here. I don't know. I obviously there are several LC people on here. Those of you, the rest of you who are on here, are you experienced Viper users or semi-experienced Viper users, new Viper users? I see some hands. Anybody else willing to unmute or say something? Okay. Anyway, oh wait, looks like there's something in the chat. Okay, yeah, I will say here that Chip is going to relay things from the chat. So I really want this to be a conversation and not a presentation. I apologize to experienced users in that there probably are some things here that I'm going to go over that are maybe old hat to you, but hopefully everybody will pick up a few little tips and tricks that will be helpful in making their best use of Viper. And particularly, we have upgraded the website over the last couple months, and there are a few things that don't work exactly the way they did before. And hopefully by demonstrating some of these things, we'll be able to give you a sense of where things have moved and how to find things if you need to find them out there. So the other thing that I would like to point out is that these slithers are happening about bi-weekly here. So, and if you don't know about these, I know some of you are regulars. I recognize you from some of the other slithers that I have been on, but all of these are going to be on our YouTube channel. So I would encourage you to come look at that, and maybe we can put some of those links in the YouTube notes eventually here, Chip. I'll try to maybe create some notes if I have access to the file, or I can send some or something so that some of these useful links and stuff are on there. The other thing that I would like to point you to is both SLiTHER 5 and SLiTHER 7 are relevant to the stuff that I'm talking about today. So I would encourage you to check those out as well, because they talk about using specific learning objects. And I don't know if there's any other ones I'm missing there, Chip, that would be good ones to point new users, potential new users to.
Those are the ones that come to mind.
I think those are the most relevant in terms of like favorite learning objects and things like that. But I would encourage you to go check some things out there. So anyway, so just a few things here. Oops. Oh, it was being a little slow here. So some of the goals I have for this slither are to understand some of the things that we talk about on Viper that may be a little bit confusing in terms of language and things like that. And then I want to spend a little bit of time on different ways to navigate the site to find the perfect learning object for you, and talk about some options that you might not know about potentially. And then I'd also like to talk about how to highlight and save materials so you can go back and find it later when you need it in a classroom situation, and how to create and share collections of learning objects, and how to contribute to the Ionic community, at least a little bit of a taste of that, and then ultimately how to connect in other ways to the Ionic and Viper community. So those are the things I'm going to mainly talk about. If there are other things that you would like to learn about that is not on this agenda, feel free to pop it in the chat over to Chip, and I'd be happy to try to address those as well. just interrupt me if you have questions. Feel free to just say something, and I'd be happy to try to address the questions that you have. First thing I want to point out is that as members of the Viper user community, we really appreciate it if you find something that doesn't look the way it should look, or that has problems when you try to access a particular thing. If there's a link missing, if there's a link that doesn't go where it's supposed to, if you do something on the website, or you remember you used to do something on the website and now you can't figure out how to do that anymore, there are ways to report that to us so that we can make the website a better thing. And so it's just a little harder to find now than it used to be. So it used to be there was a little report bugs on the side of the website. So one of the things that we did when we upgraded the website this summer is it's designed to work better on mobile devices. And so because of that, some of our side menus have gone away. And so things are in slightly different places than they used to be. And the bug reporting is now at the bottom. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's this tiny little text that is really hard to read. But there's a link that says, "Let Viper know," that is a little bit difficult to see there. And I would encourage you, if you see things, or if you remember, oh, I was on the site a week ago and I saw this thing that I didn't make sense or went to the wrong place or whatever. We're still working out some of the bugs and going from the old operating system to the new operating system for the site. So we're still working on this stuff. So continue to report things, and that'll be helpful to us. Okay, so just a few things about the Viper website. So we have over 1,600 registered faculty users and over 1,100 learning objects. And I always feel like I need to spend a little bit of time defining what a learning object is, because I hear people using so we use the abbreviation LO to talk about a learning object. And a lot of people see LO and they think learning objective, and thinking about learning goals and things like that. But in fact, a learning object is actually a collection of content items. So they can be an assignment, problem set, the answer key that's going to go with that, the assessment, all those kinds of things that go with addressing a particular learning objective. And so when I use the term LO or learning object, that's what I mean. And we're going to be looking at examples of learning objects, but I just want to make sure that language is good for everybody. We have a number of different kinds of learning object types on the Viper website. So we have lecture type materials, we have problem set materials, we have collections, which are groups of different kinds of learning materials of various sorts. And we do limit the access to the site, certain types of learning objects, to just registered faculty users. So if you're not a registered faculty user and you are a faculty member, you should let us give you that privilege, and you can email us and we can hook you up with that. But basically what happens is when you register, if you are a faculty member and you click that box, we go and we make sure you're a faculty member so that hopefully things don't show up on Chegg or other things along the way. So, and we put our answer keys and our problem sets and things like that behind this wall of only faculty users. So ideal learning objects are small, so it might be a single problem. It might be a literature discussion based on a particular primary source article. And the idea, when we set up the website, we really wanted to make these things that people could adapt to their own situation. So if my students are not as advanced as these other students that are this other learning object on the site is aimed at, I can adapt it as long as I give credit to the original author. So that's something that is I think, really helpful on our site, that you don't have to just use it as is. And for all of ours, they're usually focused on particular topics, and we list what topics are covered. And we also explain what the learning outcomes should be by using those different sites, or using, if you use this learning object, these are the learning outcomes that you should have. We collect a lot of what we call metadata on each learning object, and these include things like prerequisites, co-requisites, course level, subdiscipline, learning goals, what equipment do you need, how much time do you need, and if there are any kind of evaluation methods or results that are listed for a particular learning object. So for the bulk of my presentation today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the website and do a number of things to sort of help you find your way around. Feel free, if you have the screen real estate to do this, to follow along if you want to, so you get a feel for how this is going to go. I'm going to stop sharing because I'm only sharing PowerPoint, and then I'm going to reshare in my browser here so you can see what I'm doing in the website. I'm going to reshare my screen, and I'm going to share in Chrome here. Okay, can everybody see the Viper website now? Okay, awesome. Okay, so we're going to do a number of different things here, and I'm going to start by how do you get to the learning objects? How do you get to the meat of the website? And if you go under content, you can essentially link by say I want to see all the lab experiments. So I can click on lab experiments, and I can scroll, and I have lots of lab experiments here, and pages more lab experiments if I wanted those. I can also, from the main website, I can go to teaching resources, which is just another way of saying content. We just needed a different menu there. And through that, we can actually link to, if we go to all here, it's actually linked by, whoops, nope, that's not what I want. Let's say we go to bioinorganic chemistry instead. So if we go to bioinorganic chemistry, we can go and see all the bioinorganic learning objects there. So that's an easy way to get to big, broad categories of things. But one of the things that we did when we upgraded the website is we do have a better search engine in the website now, such that it not only searches the learning objects, like the data that you see on the website, but it also searches the attachments. So if there's a problem set or a lab experiment or something that's attached to a particular learning object, it's now searching those things. So I'm going to search MO theory here, just to kind of show you some different ways to narrow down your search to get something useful out of it. And you can search on, any kind of keyword there. But one of the things that's useful is once you've done that, once you've searched, and here, let's see, yeah, we've got many pages worth of MO theory hits, right? So that might not be very helpful if you want to narrow it down to find the best MO theory thing to use in your classroom. One of the things you can do to narrow that down is say, oh, okay, I think I would like an in-class activity, or I would like a problem set. So one thing that's a little tricky about selecting things on these filtering menus is how to double, multiple select. And it's up here in sort of small letters, but essentially, if you do control click or command click, depending on whether you're on PC or Mac, you can select those things. And let's say I want, you can also use that to unselect something. I also want to do, let's say, molecular structure and bonding. Okay, so if I hit apply, that's going to lead to a lot fewer hits here. There's still quite a few. And they're all there, but that's okay. Actually, did I hit apply? And actually, why? It's not showing up here.
I think you missed the search when you typed in MO.
Oh, okay.
You didn't
And I
hit
didn't.
search up there,
Okay.
so it's not narrowed by
I
that.
don't know why it did that. Okay. I hit the search. Okay, now it's giving me what I wanted. I don't know how I did that. Um, so one of the cool new things on the website that you didn't used to be able to do is you can actually search by author as well. So I know, for instance, that Adam Johnson has some pretty cool MO theory learning objects. And so if I just start typing his name in here, it'll come up with a list and it'll allow me to select Adam Johnson name, and that will allow me to get this a little bit more narrowed down. So here I'm not narrowing by those other forms, but I'm just narrowing by these are all Adam Johnson related things. Now, some of these are not problem sets or in-class activities, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to select problem set and in-class activity and reapply there. So that we've narrowed it down to just a page full of answers, right? So that allows us to do that. Now, one of the things, if I'm looking for something for my class, I'm always looking over here at the level, and the level, it'll either be upper division, second year, or first year, or it may be a combination of those. And I know that my students are maybe not the same as Adam's students, so I might have to look carefully. So realize as you use learning objects that are designed by people from other institutions, that sometimes you have to kind of think about the context of their school versus your school and think about, is it going to be useful there? So one thing that you might not know, and this is something that's relatively new here, is you can actually sort all the top menus that have little underlined ones. You can actually sort by that. So if you had a really long list and you wanted to get all the ones that were in-class activities together, right, you could sort by that, and it would do that. You can also sort by when it was created, and that can be really useful in terms of what's new on Viper and what kinds of things am I looking for this time around. So those are all useful ways to do that. I'm going to click on one of these here, and I'm actually going to click on a new one, which was, where was the one that I wanted? Let's do created, and let's do, so here is this MO diagram for square planar methane guided inquiry. So I'm going to click on that to point out some different things in the actual learning object itself. So a couple things here, right? I mentioned the metadata, so you can scroll through and see all the different metadata. There also are faculty-only files that if something has an answer key, it's going to be hidden there. And if you were not logged into the site, you would not see those faculty-only files. You might be able to see the learning object, but you might not be able to see the answer key. So it's always a really good idea to make sure you're logged on when you're using Viper if you're a faculty user, because you'll be able to access those kinds of things. Also helpful, we have DOI links to any kind of papers. So if I click on this DOI link right now, it's going to bring me to the access at my institution. So you can see there that it says access provided by DePaul University. So I'm getting to my own access on my campus. So that's helpful. It may work a little weird with all the VPNs and virtual stuff potentially, but that's helpful there. Another thing that is useful here is, and you might not think about doing this, but let's say I got to this page and then I was like, well, I wonder what other kinds of like bonding model LOs are there out there? Like, how could I get to other ones like that? I can actually click on any of these metadata and it will take me to, so if I go to bonding models, discrete molecules, it'll give me a list of all of those. And they're not showing them all here, but if I keep scrolling, it would give me essentially all the learning objects that fit that metadata. So that's kind of a weird way around things, but it can be potentially useful for more narrowed things. You can actually look for everything with, upper division, or everything with, other things. Another thing which is really helpful is, notice the author is also a clickable link. So if I click on Adam Johnson here, I get to a thing that just has his personal information on it, but I can actually go to the tab that says content and I can see all of his contributions to the website. So that can be a really useful way if you find somebody whose like teaching style matches yours, and you say, oh yeah, this person would be a good person to use to see what other kind of learning objects they might have done. This is a really good way to kind of see what's out there that they might have created. So, and you might not have thought to do that. So that's kind of an interesting way around things. Another thing that is really helpful in terms of organization is there are, up at the very top under My Notes, there are two things that you can click on here. I have adopted this. In other words, I used it in my class, or add to my favorites. And both of these things, if you click on that, it's actually going to save that learning object in a place that you can easily get to it. So if I go now over to my Viper has learning objects I've adopted and my favorites. So it'll actually allow you to go see all of your favorites in one place, so that if you wanted to use those again, it's super easy to find them there. So it's a way to kind of help organize yourself on the Viper website. Another thing that has changed somewhat in the new version of the Viper website is subscriptions. And so subscriptions are a way for you to follow up on learning objects that are of interest to you, or types of learning objects, or sort of categories of content on the website. So it's kind of hidden a little bit. It's at the very bottom of what you would see on your website if you were following along. I'm logged in as me, so I'm seeing some additional things there. But if I click for subscription options, now what it does is it allows you to do a number of different kinds of subscriptions. Subscribe to in-class activity. That means you subscribe to every time an in-class activity gets posted to Viper, you would get an email telling you, oh, there's a new in-class activity. Subscribe to bonding models, subscribe to main group chemistry, subscribe to this author, right? There's lots of granular ways of designating the kinds of alerts you want to get by email. So that's something that is relatively new in this new version of the website, in the way that it works. And so that I would encourage you to take a look at that. Other ways to get to sort of learning objects that might be a little bit different is you can go to one of our workshops. So our workshops frequently have different themes. So for instance, if you were talking about catalysis, you could pick one of the workshops that has to do with catalysis, and you could see all of the learning objects that were developed at that workshop that had to do with catalysis. Chip, so for instance, if we go to, is it 2016 that was catalysis?
I think so.
Okay, this is the Organometallica Frontiers. Oh, that's the
15. 15.
Yeah, 15. Okay, so if I go to 15 here, I have this catalysis, and there is a list of learning objects that were developed at that particular workshop. So these would, in many cases, have something to do with catalysis. The ones toward the bottom in particular are going to be ones that were developed at the workshop that have to do with that. So that's another way of finding things that you might not have thought about. Another way of finding things is, and this is, I did a blog post on this a while back, but if you go to, under content, if you go to collection, a collection is just a group of learning objects, is a learning object that's a group of learning objects. And so if you go to some of these, they might point you in particular directions. So for instance, there is one here on diversity, equity, and inclusion learning objects. So you could click on that and see all of the DEI type learning objects that the site has all in one place. If you go to, and let me just click on that so you can see what that looks like. If you scroll down, there are some blog posts here and some forums, and then there are a series of different learning objects that are grouped by learning object type. So that would allow you to go find some things that might be useful to use in your classroom if you wanted to bring some DEI things in. There's a couple of general useful ones that in here. So Carrie Stone did general chemistry collection for new faculty. And then I believe there's an inorganic collection for new faculty as well here somewhere. There are a couple of community challenges that had to do with symmetry and MO theory and various other kinds of things like that. So this can be an interesting way to find things. It can also be, if you create your own collection, it can be a way of organizing things for a class. So for instance, Adam Johnson, for his Chem 165 class, if you click on this, you can go, and he listed in one place all the learning objects that he used for this class. So every time he teaches this class, he's got it all kind of laid out for himself there. So it can be beyond my favorites and I have adopted, this can be a way at the course level to organize things even in an even more useful potential way that will also be of use to other people in the community. So those are the things that I think are the most useful things that you might not be aware of, you know, if you're just a casual user. I don't know, were any of those helpful to anybody? New at all? The other thing that I wanted to talk about just a little bit is how to get resources if you want to start contributing to Viper. So you may have been a user for a while and now you're thinking, oh, it'd be nice to be able to give back to the community. There are a number of instructions on contributing to Viper that are up here in the About Viper menu. And if you go to contributing to Viper, there's a set of step-by-step instructions that sort of walks you through the process, which is super helpful. And then in addition to that, there is also, so one of the things we have to be careful about in Viper is the use of copyrighted figures and things like that. So there's all kinds of information about copyright under this link. And then we actually have a number of learning object templates that help you organize all your stuff that you're going to need, all the metadata and all that kind of stuff before you start trying to submit your learning object. So this is a little confusing because of its thing here, but there is the templates here is in green. And if you click on it, it takes you to a Google Drive that has a number of, eventually here, it has learning object templates for all the different types of templates or all the different types of learning objects that we have on Viper. So that can be useful for organizing the stuff you need when it comes time to submit to Viper. So that's super helpful. Let me go back here. Go back again. I think that was the main thing. So I'm going to stop share. Well, actually, while I'm still on the website, does anybody have any questions about the stuff that I've talked about so far? I know we have some users who are relatively experienced here, or somewhat experienced. Anybody have any questions?
Hillary, I have a question for you, Hillary.
Okay.
When you create a collection, and this is something that I don't often pay attention to, does that go through the normal LO review process that any other type of LO would go through?
I think so. I'm actually not sure about that because I haven't actually created my own collection. I've just used other people's collections. Chip, do you know the answer to that? Or
You know, I don't honestly know the answer to that. I think I've just kind of cheated and approved my own collections.
Well, so as the person who is the reviewing coordinator, I find it interesting that I don't know the answer to that question, because I think that Chip is right, that I think what often happens is that, I mean, if someone knows this is coming through and then we just go and approve it, quickly, because it's all LOs that are approved already, right? So it's not like there's new content or anything in there that needs to be approved.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It might not go through the normal process. I actually don't know the answer to that.
So I have a question, and I was wondering what a way to get around this problem would be, and it's not necessarily a bad problem either. But a lot of the time when I'm looking for LOs on Viper, I end up going spelunking and get lost, often like I do in Wikipedia, right? Where all of a sudden I'm in there for a good reason, and all of a sudden I'm finding out, like Einstein's backstory and everything he did in his life. So what would be some ways I could use some of these tools within the Viper website, not necessarily to prevent myself getting lost, but to leave myself some breadcrumbs so I can get out of the forest at the end of the day?
That's a very good question. Because we don't have very good like breadcrumbs at the top in terms of clicking back. And that's maybe a feature request. So you can not only submit bugs, but you can also submit features, and that, beyond the back button, I'm not sure, going back to the, what you had done before, is that what you're sort of talking about? Like having, like if we had something at the top of the page where it showed where you were, like how deep in, the thing is, everything is so connected and in different ways that you can get to things from multiple different pathways.
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe like having kind of running lists of my own kind of collections that were drafts maybe would be a way around that, so I could kind of compile my own sets of resources as I'm kind of developing them and taking notes almost on why I'm looking at each resource. Or if it would be, I don't know if a collection would be the way around that or not.
Another way.
Yeah, the favorite would be an easy way to do that, I think.
Because then if you're digging deep into LOs and you're like, oh, these would be cool, but I don't know, maybe not related, I'll put in my favorites and go back and look at it later, right? So you can use that to like basically store those weird things you find when you're doing a deep dive and say, oh, okay, this might be useful for something else later, but then put it there and then periodically check your favorites because they change, right? So you can say, okay, no, I'm not really actually using that one, or not really, maybe I'll do something different. But yeah, the favorites is a way of kind of like storing things for yourself that nobody else sees.
Probably more a feature request, as you suggested, but like having a way to do something other than having one big rolling favorites, because how many of us have folders in our bookmarks to kind of separate things? I don't know how doable that is in Drupal and, when exactly we can get that to, but I think that might be more what Taylor's thinking of, just having some way to not create a list of a billion LOs, but kind of fine tune them.
I think that's where the collections really can come, and you certainly could do a draft collection, but if you're going to do a draft collection, why not share it with everybody?
Yeah, I was wondering if are the favorites, when you favorite something, is it sortable using those tools you were showing, right? It's like if I had a list of 100 favors, could I filter those down?
So this is something we've talked about doing, and I guess maybe I first I thought you were going to ask a different question, which I will try to answer the question I thought you were going to ask, and then I'll attempt to answer the question that you did ask. So it used to be when you did a search, like when you type MO theory and you get a list, it used to list how many people have adopted a learning object and how many people have favorited a learning object, and that used to be a separate column. That has somehow disappeared in the upgrade to Drupal 8, which is the operating system. I am going to try to figure out how to get that back. I noticed that today when I was going through things, and I know I think we have talked about it in Team Bug about trying to bring that back. But those fields, I think we can make those searchable. So you could sort by which is the learning object in this list that has been most favorited or most adopted, right? So that's the question I thought you were going to ask. But then in terms of trying to come up with something that is a way to, organize it within your own, it'd be nice to be able to like drag and drop, maybe sort them, or, I think hang on a second, let me go to my favorites here for just a second. It does have, the columns are sortable. So you can sort by, creation, changed, and I'm not sure why changed is why that's here and not other places. But you could at least sort by type. So you could say, I want to look at all my favorite in-class activities because I'm looking at something I need to use this week. I don't know. Does that answer things or kind of, or?
Yeah, I think the favorites would be a good way to collect. I was just curious if, you could keep all these, or if we could have like fields for the different topics, maybe even that came through here. Because for example, right, I'm teaching symmetry this week. And so very quickly, I went from looking at LOs on symmetry to finding really good examples of molecular orbital theory and generating, SALCs and all this stuff that I'm going to need in 2 weeks. So I was catching all those, but being able to kind of sort through some favorites. They're like, oh yeah, these were the symmetry ones. So I guess it would just be like another field potentially.
So we had talked at one of the problems with that is there are a lot of learning objects that have multiple things there. And to sort doesn't work so well. And I think we've discussed this on TeamBug. And I think we decided we can't sort by those headings because of the fact that we did talk about filtering. And it does look like you can at least sort by, like, if I want all of my literature discussions, I can sort that way. But it would be nice to be able to sort other ways. So that, I would say, if that's something we feel strongly about, we should definitely report that as a feature request, and we will try to do the best we can. I know we've talked about it. And I want to say the issue is checking multiple things, then how do you sort? But maybe we could do a filter as opposed to a sort, in which case...
I think the filter, that sounds more along the lines of what I think, at least it would help me, right? It's like, oh, let me get my squirrel brain focused on one topic at a time. Kind of pull it in.
Yeah,
that sounds good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions?
I've got a note here from Shirley. She put it in the chat to me. Just to let newer users know, when you create a new LO, and Hillary went through all of the metadata and stuff that we attach to it, you don't have to fill out every field. In particular, one that gets skipped over fairly frequently is evaluation methods, because a lot of times people are developing these for their class and haven't used them yet. We certainly do encourage authors to go back and fill in data that they might collect later on, but generally we have a theory of get it on the site. It doesn't have to be perfect. You'll get comments, but it's not a huge bar to get over, and then if it needs updating later, so be it.
Yeah, and that gets to that updated thing, is you can go in and change your LOs later. Right? And then, so that sortable under my favorites will have the dates that people added something or changed something.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Are there other things that you guys would like to see on Viper? Are there other features or other things that...
Well, are we working on a way to try to highlight the SLiTHERs?
Yeah, we're working on that. once we get approval to spend money again.
I think.
Oops. I got. Sorry, I had like maybe like 2 more slides here that I should probably show here. Let me quickly do that. Let me share screen again. Go back to my PowerPoint. And let's do, oops. So just a reminder to other new users who might be watching this maybe more on YouTube, because I think everybody on here is on Discord, but other ways to get involved with the Viper community. We have a Discord server that you might be familiar with from playing video games and things, or if you have kids that play video games. And this is a way to have a number of different kinds of conversations here. And then we also have the YouTube channel itself, the Ionic Viper YouTube channel. And we also have our Twitter feed where various things happen as well. So those are all additional ways to get involved. And then, whoops. Oh, there's one more I think I missed back here. Let me go back. Oh, and then just encourage people, if you're new to the site and maybe you don't feel up to maybe doing a whole new learning object, you could leave a comment on somebody else's learning object that you used. It's nice to let people know that their learning object is being used. And another thing you can do is you can post a modified version of things. So let's say you use a learning object and you change it in some way, you make it accessible to students at a lower level or a higher level, or with different prerequisites or things. You can easily make a learning object and link it to the one that's already there, and or put the attachment in a comment so that people know how it's being used, and maybe somebody will find yours more useful than the original potentially. So I encourage you to do those kinds of things. Obviously, there's still some forums that happen on the website. They're not as active as they used to be, but you're welcome to participate in those. And obviously, we have our blog posts. We encourage people, if there are people interested in writing blog posts for us, to let us know about that. And then we can obviously continue the conversation, but if anybody needs help, like posting a learning object or doing something like that they haven't done before, sometimes the learning curve feels the first time through is a little intimidating. So you can read through all the instructions, but if you want somebody to hold your hand through the process, I'd be happy to work with people and help you, as you're putting your learning object together. If you have questions about how in detail you have to go, or, what kinds of learning goals you want to put down, or things like that, you just need a friendly set of eyes to look on things. I'd be happy to help with that. So. Other questions?
I don't have a question, Hillary, but the one thing that I want to say that I'm excited about is the new subscription options for the LOs, because that makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, it allows you to drill down even to the learning object level. Say I really like this learning object. I'm really curious whether people are going to post comments on it, or I really want other things by this author. It's very granular now, and it seems pretty easy to use. And then let me just point out somewhere here, I think I didn't look at this, so this is going to be a good, hang on a second. Must have closed out my Chrome here. Let's just, hang on a second. I think I closed out Chrome. But I think there's a place where you can see your subscriptions. Let me just look here for a second before I take you into that. If you click on... Let me just look here. I'm looking. Oh, okay. Yeah. So let me get out of here and let me share again. I just wanted to make sure I could do this. So if we go to, if you're on your account and you click on my account, one of the tabs under your account is subscriptions. And so you can click on that subscriptions and you can see like sort of what you're subscribed to and what you're not subscribed to. So right now it's saying unsubscribe from lab experiment and unsubscribe for literature discussion. And then there are all these other options here. But that's content type. And then you can also, you can see all the other things that you can subscribe to as well. So content is individual learning objects that I'm subscribed to. Terms, I'm not current. So these are like individual, other kinds of subscriptions. So you can do it at that level too, in addition to doing it at the level of the learning object. And then under users, you can see I'm not currently subscribed to any users, but if you were subscribed to users, you could see. So if you didn't know what you were subscribed to, you could go, because there was a subscription thing in the old version, but this is much more powerful than it used to be. All right. Anybody else have any other questions?
Well, thank you, Hillary. I'm going to end the recording now.